The loudest sound at a funeral isn't the wailing or the eulogies, it's the deafening silence that follows the final amen. As I stood beside Sophia at Michael's casket, that silence was a physical weight. Everyone saw the grieving best friend comforting the shattered widow. They didn't see the secret I was carrying in my coat pocket, a secret that felt like a live wire against my chest. I leaned in close, the scent of lilies and rain clinging to her black veil, and whispered the 5 words that would dismantle her world and rebuild mine: he left you to me. If you've ever lost the person who defined your world, or if you've ever held a truth that could either heal a heart or burn a bridge, stay with me. This isn't just a story about goodbye, it's about what happens when the person who leaves sets a plan in motion from beyond the grave. Before we dive into the day my life truly began, the day my best friend died, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're exploring the thin line between loyalty and love today, and I don't want you to miss how this ends. Michael and I were a duo long before Sophia entered the frame. We were the friends forever kind of friends, the ones who had a shorthand language and a shared history of scraped knees and broken hearts. When he met Sophia, I didn't lose a friend, I gained a sister. Or so I told myself. For 10 years, I watched them build a life that looked like a lighthouse in a storm, steady, bright, and impenetrable. I was the reliable Steve, the guy who fixed their sink and brought the expensive wine for anniversaries. But behind my smiles was a quiet, achy sort of discipline. I loved her. I loved her with a ferocity that I buried under layers of respect for my brother-in-arms. I never let it show. Not once. Because a man doesn't covet his best friend's life. He protects it. Then came the diagnosis. Glioblastoma. A word that sounds like a curse because it is one. In 6 months, the vibrant, laughing man who could outrun me on any trail was reduced to a shadow in a hospital bed. Sophia was a warrior, but she was a fraying one. She spent every night in a plastic chair, her hand never leaving his. And I? I was the anchor. I handled the bills, the groceries, the medical jargon. In those final weeks, Michael and I had a moment alone while Sophia was downstairs getting coffee. He grabbed my wrist with a strength I didn't think he had left. His eyes were clear, piercing through the fog of morphine. He didn't talk about his legacy or his funeral. He talked about Sophia. He told me he knew. He'd always known how I felt about her. I tried to apologize, to deny it, but he silenced me with a look. "I'm leaving, Steve," he whispered. "And she can't be in the dark. Don't let her stay in the dark. I'm leaving her to you." At the funeral, those words were a heavy burden. When I whispered that phrase to her, Sophia looked at me with eyes so hollow I feared she might vanish. She thought I was just offering a deep, poetic sentiment of friendship, a promise that I would watch over her. She didn't realize I was delivering a literal handoff. The weeks that followed were a blur of grief chores. I was there every morning with coffee and every evening to make sure she had eaten. We didn't talk about the whisper yet. We talked about Michael, the way he snorted when he laughed, his obsession with old vinyl, the way he always forgot his keys. We were 2 halves of a whole, trying to survive the absence of the center. But the more time we spent together, the more the air between us began to change. It wasn't the betrayal I expected, it was a slow, agonizingly beautiful resonance. The challenge, of course, was the guilt. Every time Sophia smiled at something I said, she would immediately pull back, her face clouding over with shame. She felt like she was erasing him. And I felt like a vulture, circling a tragedy I had helped manage. The community started to whisper. "Isn't it a bit soon? Steve is always there, isn't he?" The pressure was a physical heat. One night, 6 months after the funeral, the dam finally broke. We were sitting on her porch, the summer air thick with the sound of crickets. She turned to me and asked, "Why are you really here, Steve? Is it just because he asked you to be? Is that why you said those words at the cemetery?" The honesty in her voice stripped me bare. I realized then that the whisper had been a shield for me as much as a comfort for her. I was hiding behind Michael's permission because I was too afraid to claim my own feelings. I told her the truth. I told her I'd loved her since the moment they met, but that I'd loved Michael more, so I'd buried it. I told her about our final conversation in the hospital. I expected her to be angry, to throw me out, to call it a manipulation. Instead, she started to cry, not the quiet, polite tears of the funeral, but great, racking sobs of release. She confessed that she had felt a pull toward me for years, a terrifying, what if, that she'd strangled out of loyalty to her husband. We sat there in the wreckage of our shared secrets, realizing that Michael hadn't just given me permission to love her, he had given her permission to live after him. He knew that if he didn't bless the union, she would spend the rest of her life in a self-imposed prison of mourning. But here is where the story shifts. A few months later, while clearing out Michael's old desk to turn the room into an office for Sophia, I found a locked drawer. Inside was a laptop and a series of dated envelopes. I opened the one marked with my name. My heart stopped. The letter wasn't a blessing. It was a confession. Michael hadn't known I loved Sophia through some divine intuition, he had found my old journals years ago. He had known for a decade. And the permission he gave me in the hospital? It wasn't out of pure altruism. The letter explained that Michael had been involved in something, a series of bad investments and debts that were about to come due. He knew that when he died, Sophia would be left with nothing but debt and a failing estate. The twist was a cold splash of water. Michael hadn't chosen me because I was his best friend. He had chosen me because I was stable, because I was successful, and because he knew my love for Sophia would make me the perfect custodian for the mess he was leaving behind. He had weaponized my devotion to ensure she was taken care of, knowing I would never let her suffer the consequences of his mistakes. He had played on my heartstrings to fix his legacy. The whisper, "He left you to me," wasn't a romantic bridge, it was a calculated insurance policy. I sat on the floor of that dusty office, the man I called my brother suddenly looking like a stranger. He had traded on my love to buy his own peace of mind. I had a choice. I could tell Sophia the truth, that her perfect husband had been a liar who viewed her as a liability to be handed off, or I could keep the secret and become the man he wanted me to be. I looked at the letter, then at the door where Sophia was humming a song, finally beginning to bloom again. The resolution didn't come from a place of anger, but from a place of profound clarity. I realized that Michael's intentions didn't actually matter anymore. Whether he was a saint or a strategist, the result was the same: Sophia was safe, and I was finally allowed to be whole. Love, I learned, isn't always found in the pure, sunlit halls of a fairy tale. Sometimes, it's found in the messy, gray areas of sacrifice and complicated truths. I burned the letter. I burned the debt notices. I used my own savings to quietly clear the accounts Michael had drained, and Sophia never knew a thing. Our relationship transitioned from a shared grief to a genuine, hard-won partnership. The last permission wasn't something Michael gave me, it was something I gave myself. I chose to love the woman in front of me, not as a favor to a dead man, but as a commitment to the living. The message I want to leave you with is this: we often wait for a sign or permission to pursue our happiness, thinking we need the world's blessing. But true peace comes when you realize that your life belongs to you, not to the ghosts of your past. Don't let the silence of what's gone keep you from the music of what's here.